Today on NewsWatch, full steam ahead. Will Trump run the table now that he's scored another big win in South Carolina? Plus, war on the horizon? Why all the chaos in the Middle East could lead to a massive escalation. And
4% of people sentenced to death are actually innocent. So have all of those errors been corrected? I think, it would be erroneous for us to think so.
Hear how technology is helping the wrongfully accused. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. The Trump steamroller just keeps moving ahead. After his big win in South Carolina, Donald Trump is now the clear frontrunner in the Republican field of candidates. Hillary Clinton leads the Democrat field. Can anyone stop them? Gary Lane has the latest.
Donald Trump's victory in South Carolina's primary gave him all 50 delegates, and it was evangelical voters who made the difference. Trump admitted he was surprised he won by more than 10%. Appearing on ABC's This Week, he said his competition was tough, especially from Ted Cruz, who put out robocalls against him on Election Day in South Carolina.
So I said to myself, wow, this is a tough business. These people are worse than Manhattan real estate developers. This is rough stuff, politics.
And it may get rougher in the days and weeks ahead. Trump is expected to win Tuesday's Nevada caucus. But from there, it's Super Tuesday next week on March 1st, when voters in 11 states go to the polls. Each of the top 3 candidates are expected to win some of those states. After Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, it's now clear that many Republican voters see Cruz as the conservative values candidate. Despite a close third-place finish, Cruz said he defied expectations in South Carolina. He's the only strong conservative remaining in the race.
Our game plan from day one was do well in the first 4 states and consolidate conservatives to go forward into Super Tuesday. I think we're positioned ideally to do exactly that.
Marco Rubio edged out Cruz to place second in South Carolina. Many Republicans may now view him as the most electable candidate against the Democrats. Rubio was asked Sunday if he can overtake GOP frontrunner Trump.
He's the frontrunner when you have 7 people running and they're dividing up 70% of the vote. We need to remember here, over 70% of Republicans nationally have basically said we're not voting for Donald Trump. And as long as that 70% is being divided up by 5 people, of course he's the frontrunner.
Rubio believes he'll do better once the Republican field narrows. Saturday night, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush dropped out of the presidential race after his disappointing showing in South Carolina. Rubio is likely to pick up some of his supporters. Ohio Governor John Kasich and Dr. Ben Carson also had poor performances in the Palmetto State, but they're staying in the race.
Now that we've sort of gotten the field down, we might actually start talking about policies and solutions.
Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, Saturday was a victorious day for Hillary Clinton.
We just won Nevada!
Democratic Socialist candidate Bernie Sanders reminded supporters that while Mrs. Clinton may have won Nevada, he received only 3 delegates less than she did in the state. Actor Danny Glover joined Sanders campaigning in South Carolina, where Sanders said his campaign has momentum.
If you look at national polls and you want a candidate who is going to defeat Donald Trump, you're looking at that candidate.
But Cruz and Rubio say, hold on, there's still a long primary campaign ahead. And yes, for now, Trump is the frontrunner. And he could either solidify his lead as this primary season goes national on Super Tuesday, or things could change if Rubio starts winning some states and Cruz celebrates more wins like Iowa. Gary Lane, CBN News.
FBI Director James Comey says requiring Apple to hack into one of the San Bernardino shooter's cell phones isn't about trying to set precedent, but about doing justice for the victims of that attack. In a message posted Sunday night on the Lawfare blog, Comey said the FBI can't look the survivors in the eye if they don't follow this lead. A federal judge ordered Apple to help investigators gain access to the locked phone. Apple is refusing to comply. The Michigan community of Kalamazoo holds a vigil for the 6 victims of a shooting rampage that happened over the weekend. Centerpoint Church hosted a Sunday night service as the community struggles to cope. The night before, a 46-year-old man wounded 2 people and fatally shot 6 others during a shooting attack in the Kalamazoo community. Police have the suspect in custody, but still have no motive for the rampage. ISIS is claiming responsibility for a series of terror attacks in Syria that left more than 130 dead. Multiple bombings and a car explosion ripped through the Syrian capital of Damascus during the peak of rush hour. Just an hour before, in the Syrian city of Homs, 50 people were murdered in similar bombings. The bombings were in areas dominated by Shia and Alawite Muslims who are hated by Sunni radicals of ISIS. Is it a perfect storm for war? The Middle East has gone through profound chaos since the so-called Arab Spring 5 years ago. But those changes may not be leading to peace. Instead, the region could be headed for war, a war that could have consequences for the entire world. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
In the wake of the Arab Spring, political upheaval led to frightening developments across the Middle East. ISIS terrorists conquered huge areas of Syria and Iraq. Iran struck a landmark nuclear deal with the rest of the world. Russia's military moved into the region, and the two main Islamic rivals, Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran, appear on the brink of war. Israel's national security advisor describes the situation in the Middle East right now as a perfect storm. He says the world should look at the overall danger of the situation rather than the individual pieces. That's because what sits in the eye of the storm is the city of Jerusalem and the nation of Israel.
The state of the Middle East is a catastrophe right now. The Middle East is on fire.
Best-selling author Joel Rosenberg sees a gloomy picture for the year ahead.
2016 is going to be a very dangerous year because you're watching the complete catastrophic failure of American foreign policy under President Obama. You're watching the Russians and the Iranians try to move into the vacuum of the American retreat. You're watching the Islamic State on offense. You're seeing Iran has been rewarded for its belligerent behavior and now has two pathways to nuclear weapons. This is a disaster in the making.
Many believe one of those disasters will result from the nuclear deal with Iran. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas calls it one of the worst diplomatic agreements in U.S. history.
Even if Iran follows the deal to the letter, they are going to be a nuclear threshold state in a mere 10 to 15 years, which, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, is the blink of an eye in the life of nations.
Cotton says it could lead to a nuclear arms race and put the region on the brink of disaster.
We are at risk of entering a second nuclear age, and the loss of life will be counted not in the tens, not in the thousands, not even the hundreds of thousands, but in the millions. And that loss of life could include U.S. lives because Iran is also developing a ballistic missile program, and they also have terrorist groups that are shown they are willing to kill Americans.
Another storm on the horizon is the brewing battle between Shiite Iran and Sunni Saudi Arabia. The feud hit new heights when the Saudis executed a top Shiite cleric.
Executing this guy is meaning like a declaration of war against Iran.
Middle East expert Michael Barak doesn't foresee war between the two countries. Instead, he expects rival factions around the region to do the fighting.
Actually, we are already witness to the clash between Shia and Sunnis in Yemen, in Iraq, and Syria. It will get worse, of course.
The final piece involves Russia as a major Middle East player. When the country entered the Syrian civil war, it formed an alliance with Iran. That unprecedented coalition poses a greater danger to the Jewish state.
The alliance between Moscow and Tehran is a match made in hell. And what you've got now is the two countries are now operating in Syria, supposedly against the Islamic State, but it puts them dangerously close to Israel. And the United States, under President Obama, has just thrown up our hands and said, well, you know, whatever, why don't you guys take care of the problem? We are ceding the Middle East over to Moscow and Tehran. This has dangerous implications for the United States and the world and for Israel like we have not seen in generations.
Given these growing dangers, many believe we may yet see even more historic changes in the region and beyond. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia was laid to rest over the weekend. While President Obama did not attend the funeral, more than 3,000 others paid their respects to the conservative hero. Abigail Robertson has more.
Justice Scalia's funeral was held here at the National Shrine of Immaculate Conception, a massive Roman Catholic edifice that seats about 2,600 people. funeral was open to the public and followed by a private burial after. Vice President Biden and his wife were among the many friends and family who came to pay their respects to the beloved and honorable Justice.
We have now received reconciliation.
Justice Scalia attended Xavier High School in New York and Georgetown University, both Jesuit institutions. In 1994, Scalia was awarded the James Cardinal Gibbons Medal by the Catholic University of America for his service to the Catholic Church. Many consider Justice Scalia the intellectual leader of the conservative wing of the Supreme Court, and some say he was the most important justice of his era.
He was brilliant, and there's no questioning that, but he was able to take that and make it more than just something, dry words on a page, but really reach people. With his humor, with his wit, he was a very nice guy. He was a very friendly guy. He wanted to make everyone around him happier.
He was a staunch defender of freedom. He was a staunch defender of the Constitution, and he tried his best to make sure that every one of the Supreme Court decisions he had a hand in got as close to the Founding Fathers' intent for this country as possible. His passing is really a devastating blow to the Constitution and to our country.
Justice Scalia is survived by his wife of nearly 56 years, 5 sons, 4 daughters, and 28 grandchildren. Hundreds of mourners, including the President and First Lady, came to the Supreme Court Friday to say goodbye to Justice Scalia, the current High Court's longest-serving justice, appointed by President Ronald Reagan in 1986. Justice Scalia was a devout Catholic who believed America has been blessed because it honors God. Reporting from the Supreme Court, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Coming up, an innocent man is sentenced to 271 years behind bars, and he was one of the lucky ones. 20,000 Americans. That's an estimate of how many innocent people sit in prison because they were wrongfully convicted of crimes. As Charlene Aaron reports, those shocking numbers have led some evangelical Christians to change their minds about capital punishment.
Marvin Anderson enjoys working as a volunteer firefighter in Hanover County, Virginia, a dream job of his since age 10. It's a dream that almost never came true. On July 17, 1982, a report came in that a black man had raped and brutally beaten a white woman. Police immediately named Anderson a suspect.
They asked me, do you know anything about a rape that had taken place over the weekend? And my response was nothing other than what I heard people in the community talking about.
Anderson had no criminal record. Police obtained a photo ID from his job. They showed the victim that color photo, along with 6 other black and white mugshots. She pointed out Anderson from both the photo spread and a lineup.
The officers stepped into the room, and everybody else that was in the lineup was escorted out. When he came back in, I looked at him. I said, she identified me. He said, yes, and I started crying.
During the trial, the victim maintained Anderson sexually assaulted, beat her, and left her for dead. Meanwhile, people in the community told police that another man, John Otis Lincoln, was responsible, and a bicycle that had been used during the attack was identified by the owner, who said Lincoln had stolen it about 30 minutes before the attack. Yet Anderson was found guilty and sentenced to 210 years in prison.
The entire room went dark. I couldn't see anyone.
In 1988, 6 years after Anderson went to prison, Lincoln confessed to the crime, but the original judge in the case refused to vacate Anderson's sentence. Anderson reached out to anyone he thought could help prove his innocence. In 1994, the Innocence Project took his case. The nonprofit legal group works to clear people wrongfully convicted. Attorney Vanessa Potkin says the system mishandled Anderson's case on several levels.
We were very troubled by the lineup and the suggestive identification procedure that led to her eyewitness identification in the case. And then aside from that, there was this very troubling evidence pointing to another person as the actual perpetrator in the crime.
According to the Innocence Project, eyewitness misidentification, false confessions, and government misconduct are the leading causes of wrongful convictions. DNA evidence made the difference in Anderson's case.
They got a profile that they were able to run in the state convicted offender database. And lo and behold, it turned out that the DNA was consistent with Otis Lincoln, who by then was in the database.
Since 1989, DNA technology has helped to exonerate more than 300 people in 37 states, a reason why some in the faith community have reconsidered their position on the death penalty.
Last year, the National Association of Evangelicals reversed its long-standing support of the death penalty.
The development of DNA evidence has provided new ways for us to probe the guilt or innocence of those who are convicted or who are accused of crimes.
Speaking to Congress last year, Pope Francis called on the U.S. to abolish the death penalty. The group Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty agreed, saying in a statement, the death penalty does not make society safer, and it can inflict additional harm on murder victims' families by prolonging the legal process. In light of these concerns and recent wrongful convictions and botched executions, more states should heed the Pope's call to end the death penalty. Potkin says DNA evidence helped free 18 innocent people facing execution. She questions their fate had that technology not been accessible in their cases.
Basically, 4% of people sentenced to death are actually innocent. So have all of those errors been corrected? I think, it would be erroneous for us to think so. The one thing that DNA testing has shown us is that, we have to have humility in this criminal justice system. We don't always get it right.
Marvin Anderson spent 15 years in prison and 4 years on parole. In 2002, he was fully exonerated and eventually received compensation from the state of Virginia. Today, he serves as chief of the Hanover Fire Department. He says spending most of his adult life in prison for a crime he didn't commit was painful, but that he's not bitter. He credits God for both the breakthrough in his case and the second chance at fulfilling his life's passion.
I talked to God and asked him to just take over my life, do what he wants to do with it. I've tried and I didn't succeed, so I'm putting my faith in you. And I think I'm doing pretty well today.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Hanover County, Virginia.
Up next, single and desperate. Find out why so many Chinese men and women are renting a date to bring home to mom and dad. China has the largest and fastest growing online population in the world. Today's internet offers Chinese users a wide range of new services, including one that's growing in popularity, the renting of holiday boyfriends or girlfriends. Mengfei Li has the story.
The Chinese New Year can be especially painful for the country's unmarried young adults. As they get older, they're more likely to face family pressures and questions like, when will you get a girlfriend? When are you going to get married and give us a grandchild?
The feeling of going home is quite complicated. I want to go see my family. However, all those questions kind of make me not want to. I don't think they really understand my world.
In order to avoid family conflict, China singles had come up with a new solution to ease the pressure: boyfriend or girlfriend rentals. The steps are easy. Anyone can go and search for a boyfriend or girlfriend to rent. Shoppers can browse the options based on photos of those available, their locations, and price. The prices are solely based on the services provided, and the cost can be as much as $165 per day. Some fake boyfriends and girlfriends charge an extra hourly fee based on the service provided. Services can include hand-holding and hugging in front of relatives, caring for elders, doing household chores, and more. Kissing and sexual activities are strictly off limits. The renters are free to do whatever they want as long as the members are not around to see. That could be another reason why Chinese single adults are signing up online. We found some adults in Beijing who supported the service.
I believe this is quite acceptable. This can help people like me to solve a lot of awkward moments. As long as I bring someone home with me, my family's going to be very happy. I don't have to explain to them anything. It is the deal between me and the girl I rented.
Although it seems dishonest and deceptive, many Chinese young people feel hiring a boyfriend or girlfriend is acceptable because it keeps their parents happy, and that is important in Chinese culture. because there are more males than females in China. For now, young men without companions are finding girlfriend rental an easy way to satisfy their demanding parents. Mengfei Li for CBN News.
Have you ever doubted that Noah could have built an ark so large that all those animals could have fit on it? Well, visual proof is here as the Noah's Ark recreation in Kentucky nears completion. And Paul Strand just got a special preview of the project.
CBN News went behind the scenes to see the giant ark as it comes together. Ken Ham, head of the Creation Museum, gave the long and winding tour up, down, and all around this structure that's almost 2 football fields.
One of the things that people say when they come here, they stand and look at it and say, wow, we never realized this was so big.
The immensity of this structure, over 500 feet long, I would call it a jaw-dropping experience.
They call this the Ark Encounter, and when you're standing here, you realize why. It's so big, you really do encounter it.
People are used to those bathtub arks with giraffes sticking out the chimney about to sink at any moment. And when they see the size of this, then they start saying, well, maybe Noah could fit the land animal kinds on board.
And it only gets better when you go inside this massive structure, the 3 decks and the top floor.
We're going to have working cages. You know, they're not going to have live animals in them. They have sculpted animals that are just exquisite.
Some of the cages are so big they had to move them into the incomplete ark because no entrances will be large enough for them.
The exhibits in the ark itself will be stunning, very similar in professionalism and quality to what's seen at the Creation Museum 40 miles away.
I believe it's going to be one of the greatest Christian outreaches of our era history.
Ark Encounter opens to the public July 7th because, as Ham explains,
in Genesis 7:7, it says that's when Noah and his family entered the ark. So he thought the 7th of the 7th would be a good time to open.
Several dozen Amish carpenters use their traditional techniques and authentic Bible specs to help build this largest timber frame structure in the world. Just to give you a feeling for the scale inside this place, there are dozens and dozens of these timbers, and look how absolutely massive the things are. They soar above your head, 5 stories high.
If people just go away saying, maybe I need to look into this, maybe I need to consider what the Bible says, then to me, we've accomplished a lot.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Ark Encounter near Williamstown, Kentucky.
That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.